Welcome to the JHM RS5 2 3/4 exhaust system video. The purpose of this video is to help you understand how the factory RS5 flap system works and how dynamic it is, and then also to show how our exhaust fully utilizes all that functionality to give you a great sound and then also comfort and quiet when you need it. We've also already had a lot of questions. The big one is, why 2 3/4? Why do you guys always do 2 3/4? Well, 2 3/4 is optimal for this size engine and the RPM it spins. Plus the header outlet is already a lot larger than the factory exhaust. So we're gonna do our best to allow the exhaust to flow with no corking by corking it down to a 2.5 inch system. You'll also notice most other companies, they tend to build their system just for a note, not performance. We build it performance first. That's why we go 2 3/4, locate our X where we locate it, and then we deal with figuring out how to engineer it better to get the better sound and the quietness you desire. So it's a little more work for us, but this way you end up with optimal performance and a great sound and a lot of comfort as well. So now let's talk a little bit more about the Xpipe. The Xpipe on this system, we locate it in a very unique place. We have a unique design, stuff we've all learned off the older RS4 that we've been able to implement into this car with the 2 3/4 inch system we've been selling for the older B7 RS4 for years. Cool thing about locating the Xpipe at a certain place, you can help optimize torque, you can kill drone, you can also make the sound a little bit better, and then we've tuned all that into the system. Right now you probably can hear road noise more than our exhaust. Right now I'm going 68 miles an hour at about 2250 RPM, and you probably hear road noise more than the exhaust. It's in comfort mode right now. So now the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna go for how is it gonna sound when you open the flaps. The flap system is dynamic. This car, if you're in comfort, it's gonna close the flap, therefore making the car quieter. And we've engineered our mufflers to optimize that sound. So right now I'm in comfort. I can give a little bit of gas, not much change. If I floor it though, flaps open, system's automatic. That's the cool thing you'll notice about this system. The factory system works the same way. We're just utilizing the factory programming of the computer that controls the flaps in our system. So you'll see in comfort, you can get a little bit of noise down there in the 2000 RPM round. But if you switch over to dynamic, you can hear how much louder it gets, and it goes ahead and puts it in sport mode. Right there, that's dynamic at about 1800 RPM in drive, and that's back in comfort. So you can see the difference. Obviously it's got an exhaust system, you're gonna hear something. Our comfort is so much quieter when you're in comfort mode because our flap system that we engineered in there, and we optimized the sound and inside of the muffler to sound really quiet when you close that other flap. You'll hear now when I go back to dynamic, I went ahead and put it in manual mode this time so it won't downshift, so you can just hear the flap opening and closing. So here goes dynamic. We're about 1900 RPM. Back to auto. See how much noise. This is like the worst drone zone. So you're normally only gonna run in this RPM range when you're in comfort mode and you're in drive, and luckily for us, comfort mode closes that flap. You can open the flap by pulling it down into sport mode, and then like I said with dynamic mode, here's the flap open again. Back to comfort. So now we're just cruising around in comfort mode, and you can tell it's pretty quiet. We got pretty low RPM right now. If I give it some gas, it'll downshift. Earlier you heard me, and right around 1900 is the worst spot for drone. And like I said, it's way worse. See when I back up the gas? Downshifts. So we're comfort mode, car's relatively quiet. If you do floor it though, the car will automatically open the flaps. So people who are concerned about drone, stay in comfort mode, way quieter, because we utilize the flaps. The other option, you can just have fun and just go straight to dynamic mode, which is how I drive most of the time, And dynamic mode by default just tends to shift later. Since you'll notice most engines, you get optimal drone between about 1750 and 2250 depending on the car. So one approach, if you want to not deal with the drone in sport mode, just leave it in sport mode instead of drive. You can see there I put it back into drive, and then we can get it to drone. But if you want to stay in drive, I would just switch the car to comfort mode. See how much quieter that got? So the key is, if you want it quiet, stay in comfort mode. Even when you're in comfort mode, you can pull it down into sport mode. It's still quieter than being in dynamic mode. And the cool thing with dynamic mode, it naturally shifts later, so you never really get drone when you're in dynamic mode, and you're also S for sport. You'll watch the S and the D. So you can do the S in sport mode in dynamic or comfort. So it is kind of confusing, but once you learn the car, it's hard to tell with stock exhaust though. That's part of the issue. So once you understand the car and how it works, and our exhaust system actually helps you hear it work, versus the stock system, it's just quiet in both. I mean, there's a slight change, but not a big change. So I'm in dynamic mode, sport, so it just shifts later. Car's pretty quiet inside. It's only dynamic mode and drive that it's real bad, because it'll drone. But if you're gonna wanna be in drive, you just put the car back in comfort mode, and the car quiets right up. So I just wanted to show you some scenarios. This is my daily driver. Let you know, like, based on your mood, whatever. But to be honest, I'm just driving around in dynamic mode all the time. Just letting the car shift, hearing the note. Just listen to some normal dynamic mode driving here. Come to a stop. Downshifts are much nicer now with our exhaust. So this is normal driving dynamic mode. You can see it shifts a lot later. Obviously dynamic with it left in sport mode for the transmission. So that's just a light throttle up to about 50 something. So you can see where if I put it in drive, the same scenario, if I slow all the way down, turn here. So now we're in drive in dynamic mode, so the flap's open, and this is where a normal drive, because we're now in D, it just shifts a lot earlier now, and it makes it drone. But if you want it quieter, you just be in comfort mode instead. So that's the only concern really. If you're gonna only really get drone when you're in drive and dynamic mode instead of the default of sport mode. So now we're just going to show you full-blown comfort in drive. You can see sport, drive, so we're in comfort mode, right? Standard, when you hit the button, obviously you can hear the note, but you don't hear that deep, nasty drone that you get. I'll do it again so you guys can hear it fully. Comfort in drive up to about 50. Put in dynamic. Dynamic downshifts, it puts the transmission in sport mode, so I'll put it back in drive, but at least now the flap will be open. You can really hear the coins rattling and all the drone, which you're going to get with a sport exhaust. It's wide open, that's 100% performance if you lug it like that. But once again, do that. Put it in comfort mode. It's like a nice muffler that just, boom, shuts half the muffler off and utilizes all that we've done. Okay, now the part you've been waiting for, we're going to go ahead and do a watt pull. And that's it. JHM 2 3/4 inch full header back exhaust system with Xpipe. We maximize it for performance, but we also gave you the comfort you want, and the note is incredible. Thank you for watching.